Let me start with a truth that might sting. Most of us are addicted to our suffering, not because we want to be, but because we've mistaken it for meaning. We've wrapped our identity in the story of what went wrong, who didn't text back, or why they ghosted us. And without realizing it, we keep feeding that story thought by thought, hour by hour, day by day, until it becomes our emotional home. You ever catch yourself reliving a moment that embarrassed you last week? Maybe it was something you said at work. Maybe it was a look someone gave you. Maybe it was the silence after a message you wish you hadn't sent. And instead of letting it pass, you overanalyze it, rewind it, break it apart from every possible angle. You feel like your brain is spinning on a loop you can't break. We've all been there. I've been there. But here's the hard truth. Overthinking isn't the problem. It's the story you're telling while you overthink and your belief that the story is final. Most of us walk around thinking, why is this happening to me? It's one of the most paralyzing questions we ask ourselves, and it shows up in moments of rejection, failure, discomfort, or shame. But what if I told you that asking why me isn't helping you heal, it's helping you stay stuck? What if the story isn't, why is this happening to me? But instead, what is this trying to teach me? That shift is where healing begins. I remember learning this during one of the hardest seasons of my life. I had just moved cities, new job, new routines, new expectations, and none of it felt like it fit. I kept spiraling, wondering if I had made the wrong choice. I kept thinking, why did I do this? Why did it have to be this hard? But one day, I stopped mid-thought and asked myself a different question. What is this season trying to teach me? And that question changed everything. Because when you shift from why me to what skill is this asking me to develop, you stop waiting for life to hand. You healing and you start becoming the healer. Let me ask you something personal. When was the last time you looked at your pain and asked it what it came to teach? Maybe your frustration is asking you to build patience. Maybe your loneliness is asking you to get more honest with your friendships. Maybe your anxiety is asking you to build structure in a chaotic world. When you flip the narrative, you stop being a victim of circumstance and start becoming a student of life. Here's something ancient wisdom teaches us, and science backs it up. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. You're going to feel pain. That's part of life. But suffering is what happens when you create a story around that pain and then play it on repeat. Suffering is what happens when you say, this always happens to me. No one ever chooses me. I'll never be good enough. That's not pain. That's programming. That's not truth. That's a loop. And if you're not careful, that loop will become the lens through which you see everything. Your relationships, your career, your worth. Let me share something from the Bhagavad Gita, one of the oldest spiritual texts in the world. It says, happiness and distress come and go like summer and winter. One must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. What that means is life isn't designed to always make sense. It's seasonal. There will be moments of sunshine, moments of rain, moments where you feel strong, moments where you fall apart. But if you let every change in the weather become a crisis, then your inner world will always feel like a storm. Your real power is in learning to prepare for the weather, not control it. It's in learning to ask the right questions, not ruminate on the wrong ones. It's in shifting from victimhood to responsibility, because that's where healing starts. Now, I want you to reflect deeply with me. What story have you been telling yourself that's no longer serving your growth? Is it a breakup that left you feeling unworthy? Is it a mistake that keeps echoing in your mind? Is it a fear that convinces you you're not ready? Whatever it is, I want to tell you this. You are not your thoughts. You are the thinker of your thoughts. And that means you have the power to choose a new story starting today. But first, you have to choose a different question. Not, why is this happening to me? But, what am I being invited to learn? Because as soon as you choose that question, you begin your transformation. As soon as you choose that question, you're not spinning in circles anymore. You're moving forward. You're evolving. And the past no longer owns you. So let me leave you with this. What is one story you've been looping in your mind? And what is a better question you can ask instead? Drop it in the comments. Let's heal together. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being curious. Thank you for choosing growth. If this message spoke to you, hit that like button, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs this reminder today. This is just the beginning. Let's keep going. We try to hold on because we think permanence equals peace. We think if we can just make that one person stay, if we could just make that one job last, if we could freeze that one moment of happiness, we'll finally be okay. But here's the truth. Life doesn't want you to forget. Everything is temporary, not just the bad, the good too. And the sooner you embrace that, the more peace you'll have. The reason you're overthinking, the reason you feel stuck is because you keep trying to make something permanent that was only meant to pass. Let that sink in. When I lived as a monk, we had this daily practice every morning. We'd sweep the same path with the same broom. Even if it was already clean, we swept. At first, I didn't get it. Why waste time? But my teacher said something that changed my mindset forever. He said, you sweep to remember that nothing stays clean. Nothing stays the same. So you prepare your mind daily for change. That lesson hit me hard because most of us are shocked when things change. We resist it, we panic, we overthink. But if you expect impermanence, you become unshakable when change arrives. Let me tell you a Zen parable, the story of the farmer and his son. One day, the farmer's son brings home a beautiful wild horse. The villagers say, "How lucky you are." The farmer replies, "Good thing, bad thing, who knows?" The next day, while riding the horse, the son falls and breaks his leg. The villagers say, "How terrible." The farmer replies, "Good thing, bad thing, who knows?" Weeks later, war breaks out. Every young man is recruited except the son because of his injury. The villagers say, "How fortunate." And again, the farmer says, "Good thing, bad thing, who knows?" Here's what this story teaches us. We are far too quick to label things as good or bad, but we don't see the full picture because life is still unfolding. What feels like loss today may be protection tomorrow. What feels like failure now may be a seed for growth later. The Bhagavad Gita echoes this truth. It says in 2.14, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress are like the coming and going of winter and summer. They arise from sense perception, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. Think about the weather. If it rains tomorrow, you don't scream at the sky. You grab your umbrella. You wear a jacket. You adapt. But when life sends an emotional storm, we don't grab an umbrella, we freeze. We overthink. We complain. We collapse because we weren't mentally prepared. Letting go starts with preparation, not passiveness, preparation. It's not about pretending the pain doesn't matter. It's about remembering this too shall pass. Let's go deeper. When you hold on to a sunny day like it's supposed to last forever, what happens when the clouds roll in? You're disappointed. But if you know sunny days fade and rainy ones too, you stop expecting certainty and start building resilience. You start asking, how can I prepare for whatever season is coming? Do I have the mental boots for the emotional rain? Do I have sunscreen for the days that burn? Do I have the humility to dance in the unknown? That's what letting go looks like. It's not ignoring what's happening. It's becoming so grounded in the truth that life is seasonal. You no longer panic when the leaves begin to fall. Let me make this practical for you. Think of one situation right now that's occupying too much space in your mind. Maybe it's a breakup you didn't see coming, a friendship that slowly faded, an opportunity that didn't unfold the way you expected. And I want you to ask yourself, what if this isn't a forever loss? What if it's a temporary redirection? What if it's not the end, but the middle of a greater unfolding? Can you hold space for that possibility? You know what helps with overthinking? Acceptance of seasons. Let me explain. Most of us think letting go means giving up. But letting go is not giving up, it's giving forward. Letting go is choosing your peace over your pain, your growth over your grip, your future over your fantasy. And it's impossible to do that when you're clinging to permanence. Imagine if trees refused to let go of their leaves in the fall. There'd be no space for new growth in the spring. Why do you expect to grow when you're holding on to what you've outgrown? Now, here's something powerful. Letting go doesn't mean you don't care. It means you're finally caring for the right thing. Your clarity, your energy, your direction. That person who ghosted you, you're not letting them win by moving on. You're letting you win by reclaiming your mental bandwidth. That opportunity that slipped away, you're not failing by detaching from it. You're finally freeing yourself to notice the better one life's trying to show you. So next time you find yourself spiraling, obsessing, stuck on a loop, I want you to ask yourself, what season am I in right now? Am I dressed for this season mentally? Am I clinging to a sunny day that's already set? You'll never stop the seasons of life, but you can learn how to move through them with grace. And grace doesn't come from control. It comes from surrender. Here's a mantra I want you to take with you. This is temporary. My peace is permanent. Because when you stop fighting impermanence, you start flowing with it. You become lighter, freer, wiser, and overthinking, it loses its grip. Because you're no longer clinging, you're evolving. You're not overthinking because you're weak. You're overthinking because your mind is full and you've never been taught how to empty it. We live in a world where we consume thousands of thoughts a day. News, notifications, arguments, memories. Your mind is not a container, it's a processor. And when you treat it like a storage unit, piling everything inside without release, it clogs. That's when the spiral begins. That's when the same thought loops 50 times a day. That's when it becomes heavy, loud, and hard to escape. But what if I told you the most powerful way to interrupt that loop is not to escape it, it's to extract it? You don't need to think positive right now. You don't need another self-help quote to copy-paste into your day. You need a pen and a piece of paper. Because what you don't release, you relive. And writing, simple, raw, honest writing is the ancient technology of the soul. It's one of the fastest ways to stop your mind from crashing. Let me break this down for you. When you're caught in a thought loop, your brain is trying to process but can't complete the cycle. It's like 20 browser tabs open on your laptop, all fighting for RAM, all draining energy. But when you write that thought down, something powerful happens. You transfer it from the emotional part of your brain, the amygdala, to the logical, problem-solving part, the prefrontal cortex. And when that happens, the emotion begins to settle. The panic loses power. The loop begins to unravel. You've just done a mental download. You've just cleared the RAM. And I want to share something with you that might surprise you. Researchers at Nagoya University in 2024 conducted a study that changed how I think about writing. They asked participants to write down angry thoughts. Then they split them into two groups. One group kept the paper. The other group destroyed it, shredded it, burned it, threw it away. Guess what happened? The group who destroyed the paper experienced a significant reduction in emotional distress. The group who kept the paper, only a minor improvement. Why? Because release isn't just mental, it's physical. When you destroy what you've written, when you burn it, rip it, trash it, your body understands that something has ended. You're not just letting go metaphorically, you're letting go biologically. I remember when a close friend of mine went through a devastating breakup. She was spiraling for weeks, couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. She had the shoebox filled with letters, photos, old texts printed out, birthday cards, all from her ex. I gently asked her, "Why are you keeping these?" She said, "Because I don't want to forget what we had." But I told her something I learned the hard way. You don't need to keep the pain to keep the lesson. She wrote one final letter. She poured it all out. Her anger, her guilt, her sadness, her longing. And then she burned it. She called me the next day and said, "For the first time in months, I slept through the night." That's the power of symbolic action. That's the power of physical closure. Another powerful study from Ohio State University showed the same thing. Participants who wrote down negative thoughts and threw the paper away were significantly more likely to mentally discard those thoughts. But those who kept the paper, they held on to the emotion too. Let that sink in. The object becomes an emotional anchor. That's why holding on to mementos from toxic relationships, keeping screenshots of a hurtful conversation, or rereading that one email over and over, it's not closure, it's captivity. You think you're preserving something, but you're really prolonging your pain. Here's what I want you to try. The mental extraction ritual. Write down the thought that won't leave your mind. Be raw. Be honest. Don't filter. Don't try to sound healed. Name the emotion behind the thought. Is it shame, rejection, fear, betrayal? Read it out loud once. This helps your brain register that the thought has been acknowledged. Destroy the paper. Shred it. Burn it. Rip it. Throw it in the trash. Do something physical that symbolizes release. Breathe. Close your eyes and take 3 deep breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth. This isn't magic. This is neuroscience and ancient wisdom working together. One of my favorite interviews on Purpose was with Nessa Barrett, who talked about her song Burn Box. It was literally inspired by the practice of writing down what hurt her and burning it as a ritual of freedom. We don't talk enough about grief rituals, but humans have always used symbolic acts to process pain. Burning, burying, releasing into rivers. All of these exist in nearly every ancient culture for one reason. The mind heals through meaning, and rituals create meaning. When you externalize a thought and physically release it, you begin to rewire your brain. So the next time you're spiraling with overthinking, remember, you don't need a solution right away. You need space. And space starts with a pen. Stop trying to resolve everything in your head. Your head is where the storm lives. The page is where the calm begins. Let the thought live somewhere else for once. Here's your homework this week. Take 10 minutes, grab a pen and paper, write down the one thought that's haunted you most this month. Don't type it. Don't put it in your phone. Write it, then destroy the paper. Not because it doesn't matter, but because you do. You matter more than that story. You matter more than that spiral. Because when you write it, you release it. And when you release it, you return to yourself. Have you ever tried to find peace in a place that looks like chaos? You're sitting in your room, the floor is cluttered, your desk's a mess, the dishes are piling up in the sink. You tell yourself, I'll just meditate, I'll just journal, I'll find peace within. But the truth is, your surroundings are speaking to your nervous system. And they're saying, you're not safe, you're not grounded, you're not in control. We all talk about wanting peace of mind, but then we try to find it in a room that looks like a war zone. Here's the truth, no one told us. You can't declutter your mind if you live inside a mess. Your outer environment is a mirror to your inner world. And when you learn to organize your space, you begin to reorganize. Your thoughts, this isn't just about tidiness. This is about transformation. Because when your room is chaotic, it becomes a playground for mental spirals. Every time you see that unmade bed, that overstuffed closet, that half-finished laundry, it sends a subconscious message. You're behind. You can't keep up. You're out of alignment. And your brain starts scanning for more things that are out of place in your space, in your life, in yourself. I remember living in a small shared room as a monk. We didn't have much, a simple bed, a small storage box, and one shelf, but every item had its place. Every morning started with a ritual of order. We swept the floor, folded the sheets, wiped the corners, and it wasn't about perfection, it was about intention. That physical order brought mental clarity, because when your environment feels grounded, your mind begins to follow. Let's go deeper into the science of this. A study using fMRI brain scans found that participants in clutter-free spaces showed higher levels of focus and cognitive function than those in disorganized ones. Why? Because clutter creates cognitive overload. Your brain tries to process every object in your visual field, even the ones you're not actively thinking about. That stack of unopened mail, your brain sees it. That broken drawer, your brain tracks it. That pile of clothes you've been meaning to sort, your brain hasn't forgotten. And all of that drains your energy before the day even begins. That's why you feel tired, not from what you did, but from what you're constantly avoiding. Now let's talk stress. A study by the University of California revealed that women who described their homes as cluttered had higher levels of cortisol, the stress hormone, than those who described them as restful. Let that sink in. It's not just that clutter is annoying, it's biologically stressful. Your home can either restore you or slowly deplete you. You don't need a new meditation app. You don't need a more complex routine. You need to clean your room. Seriously, let me ask you, what's the first thing you see when you wake up? Is it a pile of unfolded clothes? Or is it something that fills you with peace? What's the first thing you touch? Is it your phone or your intention? These small environmental cues become emotional triggers. Imagine waking up and seeing a space that reflects calm, clarity, and care. It sets the tone for your entire day. That's not aesthetic, that's emotional hygiene. Let me give you a metaphor. Your mind is like a browser with too many tabs open. Now imagine your home is also filled with tabs reminders of unfinished business. Every messy drawer equals one open tab. Every pile of papers equals one open tab. Every "I'll get to it later" item equals one tab you never close. Now you wonder why your mind is crashing, why you feel anxious, why you can't sleep. It's because you're mentally multitasking 24/7. And here's where the spiritual truth enters. In the Bhagavad Gita, there's a verse that says, "For one who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, the mind will remain the greatest enemy." Sometimes the first step in conquering the mind is conquering your space, because your space trains your nervous system. It teaches your mind how to behave. You don't need to try harder to focus. You need to design your life for focus. So here's your decluttering prescription. 1. Start small. Don't try to declutter your whole life in one weekend. Pick one drawer, one shelf, one corner of your room. Win there first. 2. Set a timer. Give yourself 20 minutes, not more. You'll be surprised how much clarity you can create in less than half an hour. Make it a game, make it a challenge, make it a ritual. 3. Create homes for everything. Just like a hotel room, every item should have its designated space. Your keys, your journal, your charger, your gym bag. When everything has a home, your brain doesn't have to keep track of everything all the time. 4. Make visual peace a priority. Put something beautiful where your eyes land first. A photo, a candle, a plant, a quote that grounds you. Make your space feel like your sanctuary, not your stressor. Now let's talk sleep. A study published in Sleep Health found that people who sleep in cluttered bedrooms experience more disturbances and lower sleep quality. You're not struggling to sleep because your mind is broken. You're struggling because your mind doesn't feel safe. Clutter signals danger. Order signals safety. And safety is what lets your nervous system shut down and rest. So what's the takeaway? You don't need to control every thought. You need to control what surrounds your thoughts. If your space is chaotic, your mind will follow. If your space is clear, your mind will start to calm. Decluttering isn't about impressing anyone. It's not about having a Pinterest-worthy home. It's about self-respect. It's about creating an environment that says to your soul, you're worth showing up for. You've done enough thinking for now. It's time to act. Start with your desk. Start with your kitchen. Start with your closet. Because when you clean your outer world, you start to heal your inner world. And when that happens, overthinking no longer has a home. Let me ask you a simple question. Have you ever been hurt by something that happened once, but you've replayed it 1,000 times in your mind? That's the difference between pain and suffering. Pain is what happens. Suffering is what happens next and next, and next because we won't let it go. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. And most of us don't realize this until we've lived far too long in the second arrow. Let me explain. There's a powerful story from Buddhism, one that changed the way I deal with overthinking. It's called the two arrows. Imagine you're walking through a forest. Out of nowhere, someone shoots you with an arrow. That's pain, immediate, unexpected, real. But now, imagine that you grab a second arrow and stab yourself in the same wound again and again, asking, why did this happen to me? Why would they do that? What does this say about me? That second arrow, that's suffering. And most of us live pierced by it every single day. We don't just feel the original pain, we create more pain by looping the story, rehearsing the hurt, and obsessing over a resolution we may never get. Now, here's the truth no one wants to admit. Most of our suffering is self-inflicted, not because we want to hurt ourselves, but because we're addicted to understanding everything. We think if we can analyze it long enough, we'll feel peace. But the truth is, the mind doesn't stop overthinking because it finds the answer. It stops when it finally accepts that not everything needs an answer. That breakup may never make sense. That betrayal may never come with closure. That opportunity may never return. And that's okay, because healing isn't about resolution. It's about release. Let me ask you, where in your life are you stuck in the second arrow? What pain are you rewounding with your thoughts? You're not broken for doing this. You're human, but it's time to interrupt the spiral because there's a better way. Here's what I want to teach you. The stop and shift method. This is a two-step process I use personally. When my thoughts start to spiral, step one, stop the story. When a painful emotion takes over, pause, close your eyes, visualize a big red stop sign. Say out loud, yes, actually out loud, stop. This is not silly. This is science. When you name the pattern, you reclaim power over it. A study in Clinical Psychology Review, 2016, found that mindfulness-based practices like mentally interrupting intrusive thoughts can reduce emotional suffering by nearly 50%. That's huge. This simple act activates your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for conscious decision-making, and helps break the automatic loop. Step two, shift the focus. Immediately ask yourself one of these three questions. What can I learn from this? What part of me is being asked to grow right now? If I wasn't angry or hurt, how would I respond differently? That last one is my favorite, because most of the time, our reactions are shaped by the heat of emotion, not the clarity of truth. When you create just one breath of space between trigger and reaction, you open the door to wisdom. Here's the mantra I want you to carry today. Pain is real, but suffering is my choice. You don't get to choose what happens to you, but you do get to choose what you do next. You can stay trapped in the mental courtroom, arguing your case, blaming the other person, trying to prove something, or you can walk out not because they were right, but because you're done wasting your peace on people who can't give you closure. Let me share something deeply personal. There was a moment in my life early on in my speaking career where I was publicly criticized by someone I once looked up to. I remember lying awake night after night, replaying it. Why would they say that? Did I actually do something wrong? Was I not good enough? That moment hurt, but I turned it into suffering by holding on to it for months. Until one night, I sat down with a journal and wrote, "This doesn't define me, but it can refine me." And I asked, what is this moment asking me to grow into? That changed everything. Because when you stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start asking, what can this build inside of me? You go from victim to vessel. You go from reaction to evolution. Let's be honest, overthinking is often a disguise. It makes us feel productive, like we're solving something, but more often, it's just emotional procrastination. We're trying to avoid pain by thinking it away. But as counterintuitive as it sounds, you don't heal by avoiding pain, you heal by accepting it. The same way you don't put out a fire by pretending it isn't there, you put it out by stepping into it with awareness and water. Acceptance is water. Awareness is water. Compassion is water. And every time you accept the pain without judgment, you extinguish the fire of suffering. So here's your practice this week. Identify one situation that still triggers you. Maybe it's an unresolved argument, a rejection, or a wound from the past. Write down the first arrow, what actually happened. Then write the second arrow, What story are you telling yourself about what happened? Finally, interrupt the story. Use stop, shift, ask. Then release it physically and emotionally. Do this every time the loop tries to restart. And watch what happens. You'll feel space again. You'll feel breath again. You'll feel yourself again. Because pain will always knock on the door. But you don't have to invite suffering and fatigue. You don't have to replay the moment. You don't have to build a shrine to that old memory. You don't have to carry arrows that were never meant to stay inside you. You are allowed to heal. You are allowed to move forward. You are allowed to be free. You know what keeps most people trapped in overthinking? It's not fear. It's not even the pain. It's delay. It's that hesitation, that pause, that quiet little voice that says, I'll deal with it later. Maybe next week. I don't want to upset anyone. But let me tell you something. I've learned from monks, mentors, and mistakes. Clarity without action is just noise. Truth without courage is just comfort. You already know what needs to change. You already feel it in your gut, but knowing isn't enough. At some point, you've got to do the hard thing, have the conversation, say the no, set the boundary, take the first step, because healing doesn't happen by waiting. It happens by moving. Let's talk about what happens when you delay truth. Someone texts you. You don't really want to go. You don't have the energy. You don't feel aligned. But instead of replying honestly, you wait. You don't want to disappoint them. You don't want to cause friction. So you sit in silence. And every hour that passes, your anxiety grows. You start overthinking what to say. Then, when you finally cancel last minute, the damage is worse than if you had just responded with honesty days ago. We think silence protects people from our truth, but silence often causes more pain than the truth ever could. Let me say this clearly. True kindness is clarity, not avoidance. True compassion is communication, not silence. And I know it's uncomfortable. I know you might feel guilty, but guilt isn't a compass. Alignment is. And when you delay a hard truth to protect someone else's comfort, you're not being kind, you're being dishonest to both of you. Here's a powerful reframing. You're not letting someone down by telling the truth. You're letting yourself down by holding it in. When you say no clearly, when you cancel with intention, when you share how you really feel without drama, without defense, you create space for real connection. Because connection without clarity is just confusion. Now, let's talk about another reason we spiral in overthinking: unspoken conversations. Think about how much time you've spent in your head, replaying arguments you never had, drafting texts you never sent, mentally rehearsing what you'd say if only you had the courage. You're exhausted. Not because of what they said, but because of what you never said back. We think avoiding confrontation protects our peace, but often avoiding conversation is what destroys our peace. Here's the truth. Conversations in your mind don't heal anything. They just delay your evolution. And most people won't change until you show them how you want to be treated. That requires a conversation. That requires courage. Let me be clear. I'm not talking about starting a fight. I'm not talking about venting your frustration. I'm talking about honest, respectful, emotionally intelligent truth-telling. The kind that sounds like, I value our connection, and I want to be honest about what I've been feeling. I'm learning to express my needs more clearly, and this is part of that journey. I've been holding on to something I need to share so I can move forward peacefully. And listen, it doesn't always go perfectly. Sometimes they won't respond the way you want. Sometimes they'll deflect or deny. But the goal isn't their reaction. The goal is your release. Because holding your truth inside is like walking around with a stone in your shoe. You think you can ignore it, but it keeps you limping through life. So here's your practice. This week, I want you to do something small that you've been delaying. Maybe it's sending that honest text. Maybe it's canceling that thing you committed to out of guilt. Maybe it's cleaning that drawer that's been stressing you out. Maybe it's saying, no, I can't do that right now, with kindness and confidence. Whatever it is, stop carrying it around in your mind. Stop spinning it into stress. Action is the antidote to anxiety. Let me give you another tool, the courage checklist. Use this whenever you're avoiding something uncomfortable. 1. Ask yourself, what am I avoiding by staying silent? Usually, it's not just the discomfort of confrontation, it's the fear of being misunderstood. 2. Ask, if I knew I couldn't lose anything meaningful, would I say it? Often the fear of loss makes us betray our voice. But truth never costs you what's truly aligned. 3. Ask, will staying silent hurt me more than speaking up? Because sometimes the wound of unspoken truth is far deeper than the wound of reaction. Now, let's talk about momentum. The longer you wait to act, the heavier it becomes. That unread message gets heavier. That cluttered space gets heavier. That unspoken boundary gets heavier. It's not your task that's exhausting you. It's your resistance to it. And resistance multiplies with time. So don't wait for the perfect moment, to be honest. Don't wait to feel brave. Courage doesn't come before, it comes after you take the first step. Let me leave you with this. We all want transformation. We all want peace. We all want clarity. But that clarity doesn't come through more thinking. It comes through movement, through conversations, through choices that align with your deepest truth. You are not stuck because of your circumstances. You are stuck because you keep avoiding the conversations that would set you free. Say what needs to be said. Release what needs to be released. Let go of what's been weighing you down. Because every time you take action, you reclaim a piece of your power. You prove to yourself that your peace matters more than your people pleasing, that your clarity matters more than your comfort, that your purpose matters more than your fear. You don't need to do everything today, but do something, one message, one drawer, one yes, one no, one act of truth. Because the most powerful version of you is on the other side of action. Here's what no one tells you. Stillness isn't something you find, it's something you build. Most people think peace is this elusive treasure hidden somewhere in the right career, the right relationship, the right home, the right balance of yoga, green juice, and a perfectly clean closet. But let me say it plainly. You don't stumble upon stillness. You sculpt it one moment, one choice, one breath at a time. And the final evolution, the real transformation, isn't when your life is finally calm. It's when you can stay calm, no matter what your life looks like. If you've made it this far, you've already done so much work. You've questioned your thoughts. You've learned how to let go. You've decluttered the outside to clear the inside. You've separated pain from suffering. You've taken courageous action. Now the journey shifts. This is where you stop being ruled by the noise and start creating your own silence. Let me ask you, when was the last time you felt truly present? Not halfway in a moment, not thinking about next week or last month, not scanning for what's missing or what might go wrong, just here, just now. Stillness doesn't require silence. Stillness doesn't require a retreat. Stillness is the strength to be fully alive without needing to escape. There's a powerful passage in the Bhagavad Gita that says, a person who is not disturbed by happiness and distress and is steady in both is certainly eligible for liberation. Let's break that down. It doesn't say a person who's always happy is enlightened. It says the person who doesn't shift when things go wrong, that's the one who is free. Why? Because when you no longer react to every storm, you become the sky that holds it all. Let's talk practically. Your mind will still throw spirals at you. That's normal. You'll still have thoughts like, what if I messed this up? Why didn't they reply? Did I say the wrong thing? But the difference now is you don't believe those thoughts as quickly. You don't cling to them. Instead, you observe. You create distance. You say, that's a thought, not a truth. That's inner stillness. It's the gap between stimulus and response. It's the pause where wisdom lives. You know how we train the body? Through reps. You lift weights again and again, and eventually the muscle builds. The mind works the same. You train stillness through mental reps. Every time you pause before reacting, that's a rep. Every time you write instead of spiral, that's a rep. Every time you clean a drawer instead of collapsing on the couch, that's a rep. Every time you speak your truth kindly instead of people-pleasing, that's a rep. Stillness doesn't happen in a single meditation. It happens through thousands of tiny reps that stack into strength. Here's a metaphor that I love. Imagine your mind is a jar filled with muddy water. Every time you shake it, the mud clouds everything. But when you set the jar down, the particles settle, the water clears, clarity comes. You don't force the mud to disappear. You just stop shaking the jar. That's what inner stillness is. It's the strength to stop shaking. It's the patience to let the clarity emerge on its own. Let's get even more real. Stillness doesn't mean you don't care. It doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you don't react from fear. You respond from centered truth. Stillness is not apathy. It's mastery. You can still say no. You can still walk away. You can still feel disappointment or anger or grief, but you don't live there. You feel it. You honor it. Then you release it. There's one more lesson I want to share with you, something I learned the hard way. You don't get more peace by doing more. You get more peace by needing less validation, needing less control, needing less closure from people who are never going to give it anyway. Stillness is about removing the extra. It's about subtracting everything that keeps you from hearing your own soul speak. And your soul doesn't shout, it whispers, but you can't hear it when the mental noise is too loud. That's why we create space. That's why we clean. That's why we write. That's why we speak truth, not to perform, not to impress, but to finally hear ourselves again. Here's your final reflection. Every day, you are faced with a choice. Will you keep spinning, or will you pause long enough to realign? Will you stay addicted to the spiral, or will you interrupt it with a breath, a walk, a moment of stillness? It doesn't have to be dramatic. It just has to be consistent. A minute of silence in the morning, a deep breath before replying, a few lines in your journal, a gentle walk instead of scrolling. These small decisions stack. They become your rhythm. They become your stillness. Let me leave you with this. Stillness isn't the absence of noise. It's your power to not be moved by it. You are no longer someone who overthinks everything. You are someone who creates space between what happens and how you respond. You are no longer waiting for the world to be calm. You are becoming the calm. You are the sky. Everything else, the storms, the thoughts, the people, they are just passing. Weather, you remain still, grounded, free. Thank you for walking this journey with me. From spirals to stillness, from chaos to clarity, from fear to freedom. You've earned every inch of growth. This is not the end. This is the beginning of your next level. So breathe deep, stand tall, and move forward, not faster, but truer, because stillness doesn't make you slow. It makes you unshakable.